My gold digger stepmother threw a temper tantrum at the reading of my grandmother's will, and immediately after got embarrassed in front of everyone. My stepmother is a very entitled person, to say the least, and she has never seen eye to eye with any members of the family. She was my father's rebound just 2 months after the passing of my bio mother, and the whole family was very surprised to see him move on so quickly. My stepmother, in her 3 years of being with my father, has gone on to try to ban the mention of my bio mother in the house, gotten herself banned from my uncle's place for getting drunk and picking a fight with my aunt over religion, and become widely accepted as the black sheep of the family. Her and I certainly do not get along, and we are always kind of staying away from each other, only interacting when absolutely necessary. I mean, how can you be on good terms with a woman who will yell at you for saying the name of your dead mother? It's also become very apparent to us that she is a gold digger of a high level, and for some reason, it only appears to be my father who is unable to see this. I have tried proving this to him many times only for him to call me rude and disrespectful. You see, my stepmother loves gold and diamond rings held. The first time my father proposed to her, she said no because the ring didn't cost 5 figures. Another thing that is a huge point of contempt was the relationship between my stepmother and grandmother. They never got along, and that was no secret. They both openly talked about how much they disliked each other throughout the years, with my stepmother even calling my grandmother a beach during Christmas once. However, about 6 months ago my grandmother was diagnosed with terminal cancer and told she has maybe half a year to live and will be lucky to see the holidays. And just like that, almost overnight, my stepmother's behavior changed drastically. She went to calling and texting grandmother daily, making sure she was okay, showing up for surprise visits with medicine and chocolates, and even offering herself to be my grandmother. Being no fool, saw right through my stepmother's act. You see, my grandmother was a very rich woman, and this was no secret in the family. Everyone knew that her nest was fat, and my stepmother wanted as much as she could get. The 6 months throughout which my grandmother's health kept deteriorating, I saw my stepmother acting so concerned for her. Even going as far as breaking down and crying at a family gathering because she was so sad that her grandmother was going to die. What she didn't know, however, was that Granny was planning to ruin her. She has already suspected my stepmother of doing this for her own interest, but what I sent her previously only confirmed to her that my stepmother was up to some shady tactics. You see, a few months ago I managed to eavesdrop on a phone conversation between my stepmother and her best friend, and my mother was quietly complaining about how she has to take care of the old hag, but that will all be worth it in the end. I ended up audio recording it and showing it to my granny. So when Granny ended up ultimately passing away just a few days after Christmas, the entire family gathered around for the reading of the will done by Grandma's lawyer. The will was immaculate. We all knew that Granny had some money, but we had no idea it was this much. Essentially, most of us got enough money to get through college, and some of us got very expensive and timeless jewelry, too. The thing is, as the will kept being read, one thing became obvious, and that my stepmother was nowhere to be found. The entire time my stepmother's face was seething with anger, and with each name that was called she got more and more angry. The will ended without a single mention of my stepmother, other than $1 that was given to her as my grandmother's way of saying, "Thanks for acting like a part-time caretaker." My stepmother threw a tantrum when the will was done. She was literally crying about how she spent so much time caring for Granny and got nothing in return. She then, in a fit of rage, proceeded to call us all ungrateful PP heads and blame us because we ended with a lot and apparently never did anything for her. She went to leave when the lawyer spoke up again. And this time what he said got her attention. Turns out my granny had left a letter to my stepmother, which was read aloud. My stepmother hoped that the letter would leave her with fortunes or something along those lines, but all she got instead was a long explanation of how she knew that the caretaker role was all an act to get money out of her. That granny knows without a doubt that my stepmother has already thrown a tantrum over the will, and if that wasn't enough to show everyone how much of a gold digger my stepmother was, my granny also put a CD into the envelope. We played the CD and it was my recording which I gave to her, the recording exposing my stepmother's true intentions. We all sat there, eyeballs directly at my stepmother, who proceeded to dart out of the room as soon as she realized what she was listening to. However, the way the room was positioned made it impossible for her to leave without walking by everyone, so her leave, which took about 30 seconds, was extremely awkward and even funny to watch. Update: my gold digger stepmother threw a temper tantrum at the reading of my grandmother's will, and immediately after got embarrassed in front of everyone. So in the aftermath of my grandmother's absolute badassery, it became clear to my stepmother that she was not very much wanted in the family. The only person who stuck by her, unsurprisingly, was my father. He went out of his way to send a personalized text message to every single member of the family who attended the will, 13 people, defending my wife's actions, simultaneously berating my late grandmother for pulling something so sly and backhanded, and telling everyone that if they wished to say something to his wife then they're gonna have to go through him first. This was the first ever huge fight I had with him. Even when my stepmonster tried to ban the mention of my mother's name, I never turned to him for help as I justified my stepmother, but this time it was different. He was going out of his way to defend a person who has been cruel and hedonistic, even two-faced, and at the same time, he stands against his late mother-in-law, who was the mother to his first love. We ended up getting into a huge screaming match about his text to the family, and he ended up telling me that if I don't like my mom I can pack my stuff and get out. He referred to that woman as my mom, and I asked him not to say that. He shrugged at me and said that he was technically not wrong, and I exploded at him, asking him how a man be so spineless. I told him I'm 16 but I'm still more of a man than he will ever be. He may be bigger and older than me, but at least I have the nerves not to let a gold-digging witch disrespects my dead wife, my son and my mother-in-law. Maybe that was too far, but in the heat of the moment I meant it, and I still do. Needless to say, I was kicked out and I'm now staying with my cousins, who have all cut contact with both my stepmother and my dad.